Haven't doubled up their money today. Never mind, you got yourself £180, but you are our new champs. Ain't that good? Yeah. Well done to them. Hey, listen, if you'd like to come on the programme, which I want you to do, can you do me a favour? Can you get an envelope and write your name on it and send it in to us, all right? It's Keynotes, Grundy TV. Put in Grundy House and make sure it gets there. 34 Upper Ground, London, SE1. I look forward to seeing you on the programme, OK? So make sure you do that. Congratulations to our new champs. Look forward to seeing our 3 new challenges next time. They've got themselves £180 to take away with them. Don't forget, tomorrow will be a keynote in your life. Look forward to it. Bye.
John Stapleton's in the chair for The Time, The Place, today discussing diabetes. That begins at 10 o'clock.
The Krypton Factor, Mondays at 7, television's biggest mental and physical challenge. 4 contestants every week battle for supremacy and a place in the final to win the coveted title of Superperson 1992. For not everyone can claim that special quality called the Krypton Factor. Watch Mondays at 7 on Central.
Introducing a new way to keep woolies fluffy. Leave cotton soft and fresh. To look after delicate fabrics and still take care of the most important layer of all, your skin. New Purely Soft from Comfort. A lightly scented pure white liquid with a softness gentle enough for even your most precious things. Purely Soft, new from Comfort. Kellogg Special K low-calorie breakfast. Get the taste, get the shape. New Purely Soft from Comfort. Free of colouring, free of all but a light fragrance. Free with this money-back offer.
Home and away heartthrob Craig McLachlan turns up at Albert Dock this morning on Central at 10:35.
Good morning. The British businessman wanted by American police for the murder of his wife and 3 children has been found dead in the Californian desert. Ian Spiro went missing after the bodies of his family were found last Thursday at Rancho Santa Fe in California. The Foreign Secretary Douglas Hurd said this morning it was inconceivable that the United States and Europe should blunder into a trade war. Mr. Hurd's comments came before a meeting of European foreign ministers in Brussels to try to find ways to avert a transatlantic clash over trade. The Russian President Boris Yeltsin arrives in London shortly for his first official visit to Britain. Mr. Yeltsin is to address both Houses of Parliament during his 2-day visit. He's also due to sign a friendship treaty with the Prime Minister. More headlines in an hour's time.
Good morning from the Central Newsroom. A 22-year-old woman has been arrested after a 4-year-old boy, his mother and grandmother were found murdered in a burning house in Smethwick. One of the victims had been stabbed 46 times.
The 3 bodies were discovered by firefighters huddled in the kitchen of this house in West Smethwick. Police believe the fire had been started to cover up the murders. The victims, a 60-year-old woman, her 28-year-old daughter and 4-year-old grandson, had been subjected to a frenzied knife attack. One of the victims had 46 stab wounds on her body.
We're working on all sorts of theories. I've got to have an open mind on it. Clearly there is some sort of a family dispute taking place because of the people who are dead. I need to show and find out exactly what has gone on. I hope the neighbours and their friends and relatives will come forward on our hotline and tell us exactly what we want to know, please.
The hotline number is 021 500 5399 or contact any police station.
A man is due to appear before magistrates in Walsall today after 2 young girls were killed in a road accident. The 7- and 8-year-old girls were standing on a pavement outside a house in Darlaston when the accident happened. A 20-year-old man is charged with causing death by dangerous driving. Members of the Prison Officers Association have called a special meeting with staff at Long Lartin Prison in Worcestershire. It follows criticisms about the top security prison made in a report by the Chief Inspector of Prisons. Ronkie Phillips reports.
The damning report by Judge Tumin on Long Lartin Prison near Evesham was published earlier this year. Long Lartin, he said, is overcrowded and under-resourced. The report also highlighted virtual no-go areas within the jail and refers to the use of drugs and low morale amongst staff. His report said some young, inexperienced staff had been bullied by a group of influential inmates who threatened the day-to-day life of the jail. The meeting with the Prison Officers Association takes place tomorrow.
Pupils at a school in the Black Country have been told to stay at home because the building's been flooded for the 2nd time in a month. All the floors in 2 blocks of the Summerhill School in Kings Winford have been damaged. Light fittings and computer equipment have been ruined. Damage is expected to run to thousands of pounds. It's believed vandals deliberately turned on taps in the school. Pupils have been told to stay at home. A wildlife rescue service in Evesham, which has helped thousands of sick animals and birds, has moved to a new home. Organisers hope it'll provide a permanent site with better facilities for the wildlife they look after.
It started 8 years ago with just 1 owl. These days, the Vale Wildlife Rescue looks after more than 2,000 sick and injured animals and birds a year. The land the rescue service has been using until now has just been sold. But today, the organisers were proudly moving to a new home. Boxes and cages were transported by an army of volunteers to a 6-acre site at Beckford.
It really is a nightmare, but this is our last move, and at least we know that we've got all this land that will be lovely for us, and we'll be able to do all sorts of things for the wildlife that we couldn't do here.
The Vale Wildlife Rescue survives on donations and fundraising activities. In future, they plan to build bigger and more permanent pens for the constant stream of animals and birds in need of treatment every day.
And the weather, a cloudy day with patchy rain and drizzle throughout the morning. It should be brighter later on, but still the chance of some showers. Temperatures reaching 12 Celsius, that's 54 Fahrenheit. And that's it for now. We'll be back at 5 to 12. Hope you can join us then. Bye-bye.
Alan is a diabetic, and as a result he lost his job as a lorry driver and very nearly lost his wife and family. Diabetes are sufferers paying too high a price. Good morning, the time is 10 o'clock and the place is London. 500,000 people in Britain have diabetes and at least another 500,000 are suffering from the condition and don't even know it. It can wreck lives and families too, and it could be, although you don't know it, affecting you. Say hello first of all to Bonnie and to Susie. Good morning.
Morning.
Bonnie, Susie has this problem. Tell us about how you found out and what your reaction was.
Well, we found out just under 2 years ago. She was just drinking all the time. She wasn't ill, but she just drank incessantly. And I just thought something's wrong. So we went to the doctor with a urine sample, and he just said she's diabetic, which was devastating. Didn't know much about it. And at first you're sort of bombarded with injections, don't eat this, don't do that. And it took a while until I really felt able to cope with it.
I imagine that initially, anyway, you, at that stage, like me now, knew a little bit, but not a lot about diabetes. And you had some pretty horrific images of what it might imply, did you?
I thought Susie'd never, ever be able to eat chocolate again, which I think was the first thing I said to her. How would you feel never eating chocolate again in your life, which was a very bad thing to say. And I couldn't imagine that she'd ever do an injection. She now does them all herself and makes more fuss about cutting her toenails. You have to cope, and In fact, being a journalist, I ended up co-writing a book about it. So, how to help your children cope and lead an active life, which they can do.
You do cope very well, don't you? Tell me what you do. Tell me what you have to do every day, Susie.
Injections and blood tests.
Now, these injections, you do it yourself, don't you?
Yeah.
And how often do you do that?
2 times a day.
2 times a day, right. Does it hurt?
No, not really.
No. And what else do you have to do?
Blood tests.
Yes. And can you do that, you say?
Yeah.
And what have you got for... Let's have a look at what your bits and pieces. Let Mum to show you. Right, there you go. They're in there, aren't they? So you have to get... Well, you get them out for me. You get them out for me, that's it. You have to get one of this out every day.
Yeah, that's an injection.
Yeah. And you do a little test as well, to test your blood. You don't have to do it, just show me the thing, that's right. It's all in a neat little pack like that, which you can do all by yourself.
Very user-friendly.
What about food? What sort of things can you eat and not eat?
I can eat beans and jacket potatoes and stuff that's got fibre in and stuff.
Yes. But you've got to be a little bit careful. But apart from that, piece of cake, really? Terrific. Who else? Other parents in the audience who've got children, hands up, please. Hands up. Right. What's it like? You're a member of this, you started, in fact, this tadpole club, didn't you?
Yes.
This is for youngsters.
This is for young children with diabetes, but not just the young children with diabetes. It's there for their friends, their families, their brothers and sisters. This is very important that the whole family becomes involved with the diabetes. As I think everybody here has said, diabetes does not belong to the individual alone, but to the family, no matter what age. And so Big Chief Yellow Frog, myself,
your good self, yeah.
And Big Chief Green Frog, who unfortunately isn't here, we both had children who had diabetes when they were very young. My tadpole is now 6'4". You actually interviewed him a long time ago when he did a swim, years and years and years ago.
Did I really?
Yes, you did. We felt that this was somewhat missing, the sense of isolation, the sense of...
Tell me your reaction when you found out this now giant
devastated, because diabetes 23 years ago, in my mind, belonged, excuse me everybody, but to old fat people, not to my beautiful young little boy. And I just could not believe it. And then comes the guilt. What did I do? Or what didn't I do? Why my child? Why not me? Why not somebody else's child, basically speaking? And then after that, it's a sort of sense of bereavement. Then you come through, and you have to come through, and you have to think positively. And that's what we hope the Tadpole Club gives to all the parents and children. We started February the 29th. We have 1,500 little tadpoles out there all over the UK. We want them to think positively. It's not a normal life, but it can be a jolly good one. It's a normal diabetic life. Stick the diabetic in the middle, and you're fine. Leave it out, and it's wrong.
Sure. And I imagine, in your case, you're a parent of?
Parent of
yes.
Greg.
That when you find out initially, you think, I mean, because it does have some pretty horrific sort of images, this problem, doesn't it?
When Greg was first diagnosed, he was 18 months old. I couldn't accept it because I always associated old people with diabetes.
Yes.
And we spent 4 days in hospital, my husband and I. And I mean, it was frightening, it really was. And you go through this blaming yourself, what did I do wrong? Perhaps I gave him the wrong food, maybe it was a holiday abroad, something he had there. It's really hard. And then you get through that, and then you go for the stage you're at home and you're having to give them injections. Which is something else again.
Sorry to interrupt. Did you think that your child was going to be semi-invalid?
Yes and no. I didn't know what my thoughts were initially in the beginning. I was just so upset about it all, and you know, it just knocks you out.
I think what you worry about is you feel perhaps once you become positive that when they're 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, you can cope. Yeah. But what's going to happen when they're 22 and 23 and 24 and 25? Are they going to go out with girls? Are they going to do the things that other 22 and 23-year-olds do? The future is very, very frightening.
John, before we go any further, and for the benefit of, I guess, a lot of people who don't really know, will you tell us what diabetes is?
Well, before I do, I'd like to say I cannot put it better than what's already been said of what it means to live with diabetes. And all of us so-called experts, if we haven't got the condition, we don't know what it's like. In this sort of younger people's diabetes, it's essentially that in here, the pancreas doesn't produce enough insulin. We're not quite sure what damages it, but it doesn't produce enough insulin. As a result, the blood sugar goes very high. People get thirsty, as was described, and they have to inject the insulin under the skin, which is not the way the body normally would have it. It would have it into the stomach and into the liver. So it's a tricky business. But as I say, I could not put it better than the way they have, and also stress that the blood sugar testing and the syringes, that means a lot of education, a lot of time to spend with people to help them through, one, the technical educational bits, and the reaction to it.
And there's no cure?
There is no cure.
What then are the symptoms? Because I'm sure there are lots of mums watching now who heard Bonnie's story, and she said the first sign was she was just very thirsty. My kid's very thirsty, lots and lots of times. Loads of kids are thirsty. Mums will be panicking. Allay their fears, but put it in perspective.
Well,
what are the symptoms?
This is unnatural thirst. This is going and drinking pints of water, weeing all night, losing a lot of weight, and looking unwell. And it's a condition that can come on very, very quickly. And I'm pretty sure most general practitioners are very astute at catching, but it can come on within days sometimes, going from healthy, running around, suddenly losing in a week 2 stone or a stone in weight for a child, very thirsty, drawn.
And it can happen at any stage in your life?
This particular form of diabetes is going up to about the age of 25, then becoming less. And then we get into the older age type diabetes, which no doubt we'll talk about later.
There are 2 types?
There are 2 types of diabetes.
One set of people are dependent on insulin, one set are not, correct?
That's right. It's roughly 20% are the younger people who, of course, live to become older people. They live a normal lifespan in many instances. Then the non-insulin dependent diabetes comes on in middle life, often overweight, often with no symptoms.
Whole family of people here. Good morning to you. Now, you cover both areas, don't you, really?
Yes.
Because, let's start with Dad.
Yeah. Well, I'm a diabetic. I've had diabetes for 33 years. I've got 2 diabetic children, Ben and Claire. Claire was diagnosed when she was 2, which was quite difficult to cope with. But, of course, knowing a lot about diabetes myself, we were probably able to pick it up quicker than a lot of families would. She was drinking more than she should have been, obviously going to the loo. And the reason for doing that is that the body's trying to get rid of the sugar. I mean, you didn't exactly explain that. The body is naturally trying to get rid of the sugar.
But
So
even
that's why
for
you
you,
keep drinking.
knowing that Dad has it, I guess it must have been a shock. It must have been a setback to find out a child had 2.
It was, but listening to the other mums sort of saying how they felt when their children developed it, I can't say I felt exactly the same. It was a shock, and she was our first baby, and she seemed very young. But I had David. I could see. I didn't feel like what was she going to be like at 23, because I could see what he was like at however old you were. I didn't, and we won't go into that. But I didn't, you know, I didn't have those sort of worries. All I worried about probably was how physically I was just going to deal with it, because as everybody knows here, you plan for hours a decent meal with the right amount of carbohydrate, and then they don't eat it, and then you don't know, you know, it's difficult.
But it's a worry. How are you coping with it?
Fine.
You look in great shape.
Thank you.
Smashing. No problems?
No.
Grown-ups too, as we've said. Alan, tell us about the problems it brought for you. When were you diagnosed? What sort of stage in your life?
When I was 41, I was diagnosed diabetic. I became insulin dependent when I was 42, having gone through all the pills and potions and that. Once on the pills, once on the insulin, and all through I was told absolutely nothing at all.
With what result?
With the result that I lost total control, hit my son.
I don't want to push you. Perhaps Gaynor, you can tell us, Alan's wife. Became irritable, to put it mildly.
Yeah, well, I think with the irritability coming on gradually, you don't notice it, you know, so much.
But there became a situation where Alan struck your child.
Yeah.
And got in trouble for it with the law. Why, given that his condition was being treated, did he do that? What had you not been told?
About eating.
About eating, how important eating was.
And injections at the right time.
Yeah. They give you injections, but they don't tell you to eat. Or I wasn't told to eat. So I was having injections and my blood sugar levels are going up and down like a yo-yo.
Sure.
And as I say, in that evening, I just lost total control. I lost about 17 hours. Can't remember. My son and, well, both of them, my wife were taken into care. Still can't remember.
You're back together.
Yeah.
Things are looking a lot better, I'm glad to say. John, it's not for 1 minute suggesting that you should answer for the shortcomings of the National Health Service, but clearly he wasn't told that he should eat after the injections, and it is arguable, quite feasible, that that was the result, in your view, medically?
I can't deny that. Alan describes the worst fear of all people on insulin, as I'm told, and although I'm not on insulin, and that is the low blood sugar reaction that can produce unconsciousness, abnormal behaviour, and he also highlights the need for a good network of teaching nurses and doctors, and you should not hand somebody a syringe and a bottle of insulin and say get on with it. And in most clinics up and down this country, a number of hours will be spent between the doctor and mainly the diabetes specialist nurse visiting at home, I hope giving a lot of support. I regret very much, Alan, that you and I have spoken earlier about this.
Anybody else in this who's found similar problems? Lady there.
I've just got one comment to make, which is that, in actual fact, I don't think this gentleman's case is isolated, because when they actually introduced the human insulin as opposed to the animal stuff, I think the actual transition was poorly handled by the medical profession, to be truthful. I think nationwide there were diabetics all across the country who were going hypo, ending up in casualty departments and doing all sorts of different things, simply because they weren't told that the symptoms for a hypoglycemic attack were going to subtly change and be different.
Can you just explain hypo for benefit of people at home?
A hypoglycemic attack is just basically where the blood sugar level has dropped to such a state that the person isn't quite as compos mentis as they normally would be.
Okay. Other people who've had problems like Alan described, becoming irritable, becoming grumpy, etc.
Yeah, my son, he's the opposite though. He's always hyper. He's well out of control, but he gets very abusive and irritable and that. But when he became diabetic, he's nearly 16 now. This was 10.5 years ago. I mean, I didn't know nothing about it. I said to him, he's going to get better, isn't he? And they went, no, he'd be like that for the rest of his life. And to me, the end of my world had come. But now he is totally full of sugar all the time. And when he has a graze or a cut, his doctor has now said that his healing process is that of a 50-year-old, and he's only 15.
Gentleman here.
I had a similar situation to the gentleman down there, except that I drove a large lorry to my wife's works. I went in with a baseball bat and threatened 2 of her managers. I drove back home. I caused £3,000 worth of damage to our house, and it took 4 police officers to come and take me back to the hospital to get me out of the attack.
And this is all down to the condition?
All down to the hypo. The hypo was due to human insulin, though.
It's a frightening illness. I just want to talk to our friend here for a tip, because, well, tell us about your brother.
My little brother Tim, he was 18. He died a year last Saturday of undiagnosed diabetes. He had pains in his legs for a while. We went to the doctors, and I believe he was tested for diabetes, but it was negative. Anyway, 2 weeks later, he was thirsty. He'd lost a lot of weight, but he thought he had the flu. He got up on a Thursday morning, and he said to Mum, "God, Mum, I feel like I'm dying." And she said, "Well, don't go to college with him, boy." And he said, "No, I have to go to college because he just got into mechanical engineering." So he went to college, was talking to his friends, collapsed, went into a diabetic coma, and was dead on arrival at hospital. His sugar level was 72, and it should be between 5 and 8.
72. And he'd never, ever been diagnosed?
No.
I mean, John, please tell me this is exceptional, will you?
Well, I think it is exceptional, but I know of cases of this sort. I think you have to sort of remember that in any one practice, a GP may see one case. I can't defend that.
No, but I'm saying also...
But I think it's very unusual.
It is unusual that it is fatal. Is it?
The build-up of acid in the blood that any younger diabetic person can get is a very, very potentially dangerous condition. With good medical backup and the drips and the insulin, it is not that dangerous, but it is actually very dangerous, particularly if it's not diagnosed.
We're learning a lot. We're learning a lot.
He was in a coma.
We've got to go to a break. We're learning a lot. We'll come back, plenty more time. Amongst other people, when we come back, we'll be talking to Phil here, who's a diabetic and who's suffering not so much from the illness itself as the restrictions others place upon him because of it. Now, he married an Australian, and their government, at the moment anyway, won't let him go to join his wife in Australia. And we'll be finding out why in a couple of minutes.
New Cadbury's Time Out is a wafer snack with a difference. A layer of Cadbury's flake chocolate. Now, when you take a break, take a time out.
The president is now stable, Dr. Billy!
Billy takes time out.
Aftershave from Lynx. Get up, get up, get up! To Kellogg's Pop-Tarts, put them in the toaster. They pop out hot. Revolution as your breakfast. Kellogg's Pop-Tarts. 4 great flavors and they're waiting for you. Kellogg's Pop-Tarts, so hot they're cool.
Tonight, new improved chick sticks from the Bird's Eye Steakhouse.
They're a bit like chicken fingers.
Don't be stupid, chickens don't have fingers. Do they?
Play school electronics are designed with little kids like yours in mind, with a sound limiter, colours that show, red for stop, green for go. There's a microphone and better yet, they turn themselves off when kids forget. Play school electronics designed for kids.
Dad's always trying to save money by economising. First it was the electricity. Then it was the heating. So when Mum discovered her personal micro-liquid came in a refill pack, Dad was well pleased. You still get great results, but the refills cost less, so you save money. You'd think with all this economising we could afford a proper spin dryer.
New Persil refill packs. Brilliant results for less money and less waste.
If you appreciate a nutty flavour, crack open a Viennetta praline. Wall's Viennetta. One slice is never enough.
What could be better value than Pampers? A Pampers Value Pack. You get all that Pampers dryness and you save money.
Green grass makes our butter taste right. We'll defend it with all our might. Now we've trapped them in the stream. We'll make butter that tastes supreme. Anchor butter from green grass.
Under this skin, there's plenty of moisture. Under your skin too, for now. But without protection, skin can quickly lose moisture. Bad news for apples, good news for you. Because Oil of Ulay works like young skin's natural fluids. It locks in that precious natural moisture like a magnet for a long time. And no greasy shine, helping to protect your skin's youthful look. Oil of Ulay twice a day for young-looking skin.
Have you ever been asked to donate your loved one's organs for a transplant? Did you refuse, and if so, why? Or do you believe that it should be compulsory for all bodies to be available for transplants? Please ring us now on 0891 700 145. That's 0891 700 145.
Welcome back. We're going to be hearing the story of Phil here in just a moment. But for those of you who want information about diabetes, we're going to be putting up the address of the British Diabetic Association. Here it is. Number 10, Queen Anne Street, London W1MOBD. 10 Queen Anne Street, London W1MOBD. That'll be popping up from time to time. Let me also stress, I've been asked to point out by several people in the audience, that diabetes is not the end of the world if you've got it. It's a serious problem, or can be a serious problem, but it can be contained, it can be controlled. And a lot of these people are sort of living proof that it's copable with, isn't it? Yep. However, there are problems. You got married to an Australian lady. For her own reasons, she had to go back to Australia, yeah?
Yeah.
And you can't join her. Why is that?
Because I'm diabetic, in short. I started the application in March. And since then I've been going through a whole series of tests, and I'm probably as well qualified about the medical aspect of diabetes now as any doctor in this room, because I've had to have all the tests.
Who's asking you to have the tests?
It's not dealt with in London like most other things. It has to go to the Department of Health in Sydney, which makes the process very long-winded. So on average it takes 6 weeks from me sending in a result to getting a judgment back from the powers that be.
Why should the Australian authorities make it so hard for a diabetic to go to Australia?
Because they don't want anyone who is, quote, a burden on the public purse, unquote.
How do you feel about that, given that you are separated from your wife?
Severely victimised, really. I mean, Kelly, my wife, and I have our life now perfectly set up to be living in Australia. The one flaw in that plan is that I'm not there. So
it is a bit of a setback, really, in my life, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't mean to make light of it. It's not funny.
No, it's not. It's actually been far worse than actually being diagnosed as diabetic. It's been an absolute nightmare of however many months it's been since March.
Are they any different, really, at the end of the day, to any other institution in the way they're treating you?
I've no idea. I mean, I think the thing with diabetics is that everyone has a very individual and personal response to it, and people's responses to them. And for me, this has been the first major hurdle that I've come across, where it's not so much a hurdle, it's more like a very tall, thick steel wall or something that I can't get through. And so that's really been my first hurdle, but I've heard of plenty.
Like from him?
Yes.
You're a fireman, aren't you?
Firefighter, yeah.
Firefighter.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Five women too, yes.
I'm married to another firefighter, so it's quite
You've got to be, yeah.
The stories we've heard this morning, I mean, untreated diabetes